Radiohead's Kid A. It has been a year and a half since my last little album talk through that I did, which was also about a Radiohead album. And I purposefully stopped making videos, stopped uploading videos, not just because, well, no, I did have ideas for videos, I just didn't do them. Not just because of procrastination, but because I was waiting to see if something else came to me. And it was August 13th, 2025, and it was in the day, like, itself wasn't very memorable, but that night I thought, well, I haven't listened to this album Kid A in a while, maybe I'll go through it and check it out again. So I put on this red sort of semi sweater that I have and these white sweatpants, and I walked at, like, I think it was like 9-10 p.m. at night. I walked it from 9 to 10 p.m. and it happened. The album hit me in a way just like OK Computer had a year and a half ago, to the point where I felt like I needed to make a video talking about it. So this is a video talking about their album right after OK Computer. Kid A came out in 2000, Y2K, technology, stuff like that. And I suppose I'll just run through the tracks. The first song, Everything in Its Right Place, that's a very cool song to open up with because it may be the best song of all time. People always talk about, with this song, we talk about the four opening notes, the da 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 da. This is kind of a side note, but I learned how to play this song along with two others because there were, like, those little parts of it that were easy to do, I suppose. That's not really the right term for it. Easy to do. They were like the bass musical element of those things. Like, Everything in Its Right Place had the piano or the keyboard, and the other two I'll tell you later. But this song's crazy. Because it's in 10/4, which is not very regular, and it's called Everything in Its Right Place. And there's already this unease to it. So, you don't know what to expect with this record off the bat. And then Tom York comes in, and he's the thing keeping the song together, it seems. He's like pulling everything into a streamline, and there, like, throughout the song, it just keeps glitching out, it just keeps malfunctioning, and, like, it's like trying to break. And this Tom York guy, he's coming in, and his voice is like trying to save the show, and by the end of the song, it's like his voice has gotten sucked into the keyboard, or some kind of technology that they used for the making of the song. And it's almost like his voice is stuck in the computer for the entire rest of the album, which fits into a point of continuity with this album, is that this album has a very strong continuity, I feel like. But that's another thing. And the other thing you notice with the song is that there's there's the beat going, just like a gentle, just that soft beat going in the back. So, Radiohead, this rock band, is coming in, and they don't. First song isn't really a rock thing at all. So you're kind of caught off guard with that. And then the next song is the title track, Kid A, and I think it's definitely the loneliest on this album. And some people will probably disagree with that, but that's fine. Um, there's still keyboards, and there's like boatman sounds, and the drums are a bit more. Um, they're a bit more on the song. They're kind of doing like an IDM thing, like going on. Um, and in the song, the vocals don't even. It's not Tom York. You see, it's the computer version of Tom that happened on the last song. Remember he got stuck in the keyboard. So that's how he sounds for that song. And I do like the lyrics. I like the imagery that he sort of provokes. Not sort of, but the imagery that he provokes in the song. He says like, staying in the shadows at the edge of my bed is one of them. And it's like, I wonder what inspired him to like bring up a child's nightmare for that specifically. And a cool thing about the lyrics in this record is that I don't know what they mean, and I like not knowing what they mean. I am not the kind of person who want to know what every word or phrase or lyric an artist uses, what they mean, what they represent, because I can come up with that myself, and it's like, I can figure it out. I don't need it drawn out for me. But there's this. It's like the song just goes and goes, and then the like high keyboard comes in, and it kind of pulls the song away from itself and sort of progresses the album. And that's something that happens on the record a lot. I think that the songs kind of get stuck in themselves and need to be pulled out by some like greater force controlling the songs. And I suppose I can't really think of another record that's like that. I can't really think of another album that does something like that. And it's such a strange thing to describe, but it's very cool to hear. And Kid A is cool. The song Kid A is cool. And the next song is the national anthem. And the national anthem may be, the best song of all time. Some people say it may be the greatest song of all time. And the bass riff starts it, and it's so thick, and it's so heavy, and it's the same riff the whole song. The same riff. The drums come in. You think it's looped. You think it's all looped, but it isn't. They're playing that live. They're all playing that live. You think it's just a beat that they're doing. No, it was krautrock the whole time. So there's that little dynamic in the album too, in that they are using loops and they are making these electronic beats, but they're also not looping it, and they're just playing these certain parts over and over for the whole song, as if they were loops, as in this krautrock style. And there's a few of those like dynamics on this album that I think don't get brought up very often. Anyways, the national anthem, the lyrics are like very little on it. It's like everyone is so alone. I think he says on it, and then a trumpet comes in. You know what I'm saying? A trumpet comes in, and it's just going up and down, like da da ba da da ba da 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 ba da 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 da, and then the whole jazz orchestra comes in. You hear the trumpet, and you're like, okay, they got a trumpet player now, and then the whole like jazz orchestra comes in, and you're like, what's going on? Because it's not like regular. You're like, is this a jazz thing? And it is a jazz thing, but it's just a real. It's like fucked up jazz. It's like jazz that's fucked up, and it's another like punch, not a punch. It's another like um, it's like putting the what's it called? It's like putting the veil over you and then disappearing when you pull it away. I don't think it's called a veil, but the motion of that, you probably know what I'm talking about. It's a surprise. That's what I wanted to say. It's a surprise. And then but the jazz orchestra, they just keep freaking out. They keep freaking out. Like the trumpets are yelling and they're crying, and then the whole orchestra starts yelling and crying at the end, and then the the rock instrumentation kind of stops, and then they all honk at me. They all honk at me like I'm in traffic, and every car is turned facing me somehow in the road, and it's like, okay, I'll take it. And then the song just stops, you know. And that's one thing I like. I like when a song doesn't really end; it just stops. And I don't know why necessarily I like that. I can't think of a reason at this point in time, at this point in my life, why I like songs that just end instead of stop. That songs that just stop instead of ends. God. But that's the national anthem, and then the song after that is "How to Disappear Completely," which could be the best song ever made. I'll stop for a bit. I'll stop saying that. But some people say this is Radiohead's best song. Some people say this is one of the best songs ever. I'd agree it's one of the best songs ever. I don't know if it's the best Radiohead song, but it could be. You know, um, it's cool how the jazz people from the last song have been switched out for a string orchestra. You know, sort of a chamber orchestra now, and that's another dynamic. That's another thing is that they they have like an idea, and then they kind of mirror it or switch it around in some way, and you don't even realize it. You don't even realize it until you stop to think about it, because you're still trying to process this album. You're still trying to process, just what the music is that you're listening to. You're not thinking about like all the technical aspects about it. But How to Disappear Completely is about like a dream that Tom York had. And that brings me to, I think this is a much more personal record than OK Computer. And I think that's part of the reason why this isn't at the same like level of acclaim that OK Computer is. It's close to the same level of acclaim, but it's that OK Computer is so general and is so, you know, it can apply to anybody. And Kid A is like for a smaller group of people. Like not everybody is gonna understand the stuff that Kid A is about. And that's I like that. You know what I'm saying? I enjoy that. I think, I'm in the group that I would like to think I get what Kid A is about, but there is no way to know for sure. But the strings are beautiful on this song, and the every instrument in it is in waltz time, is doing a waltz, but the bass is in regular time. the bass is in straight time. So the song itself is musically lost, you know. And I think by the end it straightens out to, regular time 4/4. I believe. I don't know if that's right or not. But excuse me. Um, there's a part that's where Tom York stops. He stops saying lyrics. He stops saying words, and he's just kind of making sound. There's the part where he's he's doing the thing, and then the strings are just they're kind of going all around. They're getting really dissonant, and they don't sound regular, and they're going in like every direction. And then it's like magic. Somehow Tom York does another little noise, and this it's when the strings are going every which way. It's like it's like he's drowning. It's like you're watching a guy drown, and then he makes another sound, and the strings. It's like they pull him up out of the water, and they save him from drowning. And that's probably the best composed moment in a Radiohead song, I'd like to think. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. It's probably the most well thought out, most artistic moment in at least the Radiohead songs that I know of, man. Honestly, and it's it's definitely the best on the album. I didn't know what I was gonna say that about for this, but I think it's How to Disappear Completely. I think that one's the best. And the next song is Tree Fingers, and that's an ambient interlude, and I don't care. That kind of leads me to something about this album is that people people classify this album as a lot of things. They call it people have called it experimental rock or post rock, and I don't agree with those. I do think you look up old interviews of Tom York making the album, and he's like, I hated rock music. I didn't want to do a rock album. I was tired of guitars and rock music. And I think that's really funny because Kid A is a rock album to me. It is full on a rock album. You remember last video, OK Computer, I said it was a combination of alternative rock and art rock. That was kind of its appeal. Kid A is just art rock. It's just this futuristic art rock that we really haven't even caught up to yet. We'll probably get there soon, but I don't think we've really reached this sort of level, like wide scale, since I don't remember what the day was in that day in the 2000th year that they released this album. That was such a clunky way to say that sentence. But I was thinking, I feel like people call this an electronic album, and I disagree with that. But I get why people say that because there's not a lot, but there's a good bit of electronic songs on this album. There's a lot of songs that take influence from electronic music. I don't think that makes an electronic album, but to each his own. Which is why I think that I think this is really more of an ambient album than anything. Like not a full on ambient album, but you look at the music and the backing for every song. Every song has, not every song, but most of the songs have just so much space in them. Like there's so much atmosphere and there's so much space within the music itself that I think even talking about the electronic textures used, I think those are used more as vehicles for ambient music, this ambient sort of music that they're making, or they were making. And I think that is, I think that by itself, forget like a rock band making electronic stuff. I think a widely acclaimed alternative rock band going and making this ambient album is a much cooler, not cooler, but a much more different pivot than just using keyboards and making beats and stuff, you know. But this is my opinion again, and I usually skip Tree Fingers. But then the next song is Optimistic, which goes against everything I just said. Not everything I just said, because it's still rock, but it's like it is alternative rock, you know, in the end, and it's like it's so gravelly, not gravelly. It's like rubbing your foot on gravel. You know, it's so rugged, and it's like the guitars are made out of stones and or boulders or something. You know, it's like a meteor. Yeah, optimistic reminds me of a meteor. That's not crazy to say. Um, and the lyrics are pretty sarcastic. I think I remember I remember people say, you know, like, I can't believe Radiohead would make a song about optimism and just being positive. And I don't think they are. I don't think they are being positive. I think it's all just one big twisted joke from Tom York. What a guy. What a sick, twisted guy. Those Radioheads. Anyways, um, the drums, again, it's the same pattern. It's the same instruments playing everything. It's not looped. They're really just playing the same like riffs over and over. And that builds the atmosphere, you know. Just imagine playing these songs for real. Like, you get lost in them. And that reminds me, How to Disappear Completely is the other song I learned how to play. And everything in its right place. When I would play it on the piano, I used to get lost in that song. I used to get lost in the chords, and my fingers moving on the keys of the piano, I would get lost in the music. And I don't know how that happened. I have a pretty good guess of why that happened, but I'm not sure why that happened, because I can't think of any other song that has had that occur with me. I mean, I don't know. But optimistic, anyway, you know, it's just the rock instrumental, and then it opens up for a little bit. The keyboard and stuff comes in like da 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 da, and the drums start going crazy, and then it like explodes, and then it sort of bunkers down, and there's a cool little loop at the end, a cool little a cool little loop, a cool little loop at the end of that song, and then it transitions into In Limbo, which is not talked about enough. It feels like imagine you're in the air, you're close to the clouds, and you're face up, and your limbs are out in front of you, trying to grab onto something, and it's like you're falling, but you're not falling in any direction. You know, that's sort of what In Limbo feels like to me. I think most people think of it as like trying to stay afloat at sea or something. He does talk about I'm lost at sea and stuff on the song. So that probably has something to do with it. And I think the lyrics are still very evocative and still thought-provoking. In the song he says what, like, you're living in a fantasy world in it. It's just like, I think that's like a really good symbol for Radiohead. I think you're living in a fantasy world. You could, like, most songs they've ever made could probably have that line in them. You know what I mean? That's just, it's very emblematic of their writing style and their music and all that. And then this is another song where it gets stuck in itself, and then something just pulls it. Something more pulls it apart in this. It like breaks at the end. Like, it it really does break itself at the end, and Tom York is just at the end of the room, just wailing out into the microphone at the other side of the room, and he just fades out, and the beat breaks, and the like that's the end of the song. I like that it ends just. I like that it just fizzles out. I didn't even think of that before sitting down. Like, it really does just fizzle out, you know. And then the next song is Idiotech, which might actually be the best song of all time. I'm coming back with it. I'm saying that again. And it's this IDM track from Radiohead. Imagine 2000. Imagine you've never heard like Boards of Canada, Aphex Twin, anybody, and then Radiohead comes in, and you're like, what the hell is this? And it starts off in waltz time. It starts off with a waltz pattern, and then they sampled this '70s record. I think Electronic Music Winners. They sample this record, which turns it into straight time. It turns it into four time, and it comes in and out, and every time it comes out, it just goes back to six. It goes back to waltz time. And it's that sort of that actually happens at In Limbo too. That happens in the last track because the chorus is in waltz time. The chorus is in six, and then all the verses are in 4/4. So they're just changing the time. They're changing the time counting in both of these songs, but in very different ways. Again, dynamics that fits in with the dynamics because In Limbo is live music. They're just doing the same riff. Idiotech is a production, is a beat that they made, but they still do the same thing. They accomplish the same thing musically in that sense. And the lyrics in this are crazy. They're like, everyone is in like everyone's underground, everyone's living in bunkers and stuff. Man, what is this song about? I don't even know. I don't even know. I couldn't even put together a story for this song, man. Honestly, because I just started thinking about the chorus, and that doesn't even really fit in with the rest of it. But that's all right because the sample is just so. There's something about it. It it like it makes you wonder, how did they find that record? How did they? It's so beautiful too. It's such a beautiful selection of chords that they pitched it down for this. Idiotech is the other song that I know how to play. If you can describe it that way. And the bass is like knocking. It's so loud. It's not that loud, but it's just. I think Tom York said he wanted the speakers to feel like you're at a club, and he wanted the bass to feel like you're at a club and the speakers are just are just blaring and you're right next to them, which is cool. You wouldn't imagine Tom York as like a club guy, but you know, and it's such a it's another song. This is like the song that this is like the song that again, you know, gets stuck in itself. It it uh it almost like breaks itself, but Tom York, he does kind of keep it together, and it's like his vocal and his melody that he gets going in this song, it is the thing keeping the song together. And you know, the song ends normally this time, so I mean that's a cool development from the selection of songs that we've seen so far or heard so far, you know. And it's such a, I mean, thinking about the beat, it's almost like there's not much to describe, but in that, you can describe it well. Like it's just so, it's so small, but there's still so much space, and there's still, um, it feels like grander than it is, but not grand. It's just like it feels so much wider than it is. That's a good way of describing it. Yeah, it feels wider than it is. It's like a magic trick that they pulled off. It's so strange. And then the song beeps out, and the next song is Morning Bell, which is in five. It's in 5/4 time, and again, not a loop. It's not a loop. They're just playing it live again, and it actually starts off really. Most of it is just really soft, you know, like it's just piano, and Tom York is sort of he's just humming over the he's just humming the lyrics and all that. And then he starts talking about like then he starts getting a little deranged with it. He's like Sleepy Jack the fire drill. I think he says cut the kids in half. I think this is a good song to demonstrate the cut up nature of the lyrics, I believe, because they don't really connect in his song. I'd argue they don't connect in the song. Maybe one of you thinks it connects and you can prove me wrong. I would like to see that. But there are like there are like those little moments in the song where it sort of opens up and then it closes again. Like when he's like round and round and round and round, and all the guitars come in, and one's like this weird guitar is coming in, like going up and down, like, and then the regular stuff, not regular, but like it expands for a moment, and then it shuts again, and it's just the piano, and Tom York saying, "Cut the kids in half," and then he just starts mumbling, and this really like angled guitar starts coming in. It's like climbing a staircase, like da 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 da. That wasn't a good way to make those sounds, but we press on, uh, and then the song just sort of ends, and that's that. And then the next song, last song, is Motion Picture Soundtrack, which might be the best song of all time. No, one of you probably agrees with that. You know, a lot of people like this song, and you remember the orchestra from How to Disappear Completely. They reappear a little bit in this song. You know, there are these. Well, we'll get into that because it's this soft little organ shows up, and it's all very quiet, and it's like Tom York is like he's about to overdose or something, and he's talking about Tom York. He's talking about disappointment and things of that nature. And so you think, is it just going to be the organ and Thomas the whole time, and then the harps come in and the other strings start coming in, and you're like, okay. It really turns into something. It's turns into this sort of holy kind of matrimony-esque thing at the end, and it just sways you through, and it's like the album's dying in front of you or something. Like the last line of this album is Tom York. He's like, "I'll see you in the next life." It's like this album is a baby. It's like this album was a baby and it just grew up and died while you listen to it. Which again, I can't think of an album that is like that. And this is just implied. This isn't like directly stated to you within the album or the CD or booklet or lyrics or anything. It just gives you that feeling. It's vague about it, and I like that it's vague about it. But yeah, then the strings fade out, and then there's you wait 2 minutes, and then there's the real end of the album, the ascension per se, and then it ends for real, and that's the end of Kid A. Something I remembered while talking about the songs was that I completely forgot to bring up the cover. And the cover, how long have I been going for? 37 minutes, Christ. Okay. Well, the cover is very nice. Or not very nice, but it really like adds to the atmosphere. Like the snow-covered mountains that are some of them are on fire. So you do get that impression of like a nuclear winter, of like this sort of end of the world coldness, that nuclear freeze that's just all around. And inside I wonder if I can, I wonder, like inside the booklet, I gotta take the CD out. There are these like textures. I don't know how to describe them. They're like these textures of triangles, and they're all like more than modern. I'm not going to say postmodern because that's a different thing, but they're ahead of time, I suppose would be the way to say that. And then the back cover, I don't even know yet what it's supposed to be. Is it like a town or a village? But there's still snow. If it is a town, there's snow on the hills of the back. Maybe that's like a mountain range or something, and there's still like the hellfire on the right, and these black mechanical blocks covering everything. So I'll say I like the cover better than OK Computer, and I think the reason people that this album, if you remember from last video, OK Computer, there was a lot of like pop influence stuff, like post Britpop sort of stuff on that album that influenced other artists that made it popular, made it successful, made it to the charts. That album had a lot of influence in that area. I think I said in the last video that Let Down was the crux of that album. It was the centerpiece, and the year after I said that, everyone started listening to it, and it's like I think it did get on the Billboard charts the year after, which is funny because I listened to that song the most in 2024, which was a year ahead of. That sounds like a hipster thing for me to say. I'm sorry, but anyways, my point is that I don't think Kid A is comparable to that. I don't think Kid A. And that's also funny because in terms of what this album is trying to say and what this album is trying to get across, it's really very similar to OK Computer. Like a lot of it is still depressing. A lot of it is still, downbeat and thoughtful and, provoking. But it's just the way that they get these things across in these two albums, I think is really why people differentiate them so much, even though they're very similar concepts and they're very, the ideas of the songs are pretty similar. Not in terms of songwriting, though. Like I said, the songs in Kid A have so much more space than OK Computer, except for the ones that don't, because there are a couple songs in this that are still crunched together, like how OK Computer was, just layers on top of layers on top of layers. Like Optimistic has a bunch of guitars layered on top of each other, and just other instruments, keyboards, and what was I just thinking? I was just thinking that this album, there's no centerpiece to this album because it's all like one thing. It's all so cohesive, and I don't think any song from Kid A could possibly be like used on its own and get popular on its own. You know, you just gotta. It's like if you like Radiohead, if you like OK Computer as much as most people, you can go to Kid A yourself and like figure out what you think about it yourself. I mean, this album used to really divide people, man. People were like, "What the hell is this?" when it came out, because no one knew it was gonna sound like this. No one knew. Um, People weren't sure what it was. You know, downloading the songs for the first time and all that, and getting it on CD. It's so crazy that this song is on it. That this album is on a CD. God, I just called it a song. Jesus. But it is funny to me. I don't know why um, strange textured music is funny for me to hear on a CD. I don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense or not. But I don't know if there are any more points I was gonna make. I think that Kid A is a perfect album, and I'd recommend it. I'd recommend Kid A, and that is the end of this 10-hour long video. Thank you.